In this video, I'm going to break down stretching, all the high-level principles that you need to know, and then how to apply them tactically. So we're going to break down a static and dynamic stretching, when to apply them, how to apply them, for how long to apply them, so that you can stretch both safely and get the most out of your stretching, and so that you can recover and utilize these different tools to get the most out of your recovery and your performance. And a little bit of background on me, I was a Division I catcher 15 years ago at this point, but it's all something that I'm really passionate about, the mobility, the stretching to make sure that I can be behind the dish for 9 innings. And then also 15 years later to make sure that I can go full ass to grass in a squat. I'm a FRC mobility specialist certified through FRC. And so mobility is something that I've spent a lot of time making sure that I have, clients have. And so we're definitely going to be looking at a lot of the science here. And then I've also been a yoga instructor for several years. I was a Lululemon ambassador. And so whether it's teaching flexibility and stretching, parasympathetic, getting relaxed into a easier state for you to stretch. These are all things that I've applied as an athlete myself, things that I've applied with clients, things that I've applied in classes. And so let's dive into the first one, which is going to be the principles. So principle number 1, and this is just a pet peeve of mine, honestly, is when people sacrifice other joints or other positions to get a little bit deeper into a stretch. And this is something that I saw a lot in yoga, but you can go into any gym and you'll see this as well. So let's say someone wants to get deeper into a hamstring stretch, and then all of a sudden they're like pulling their arm up overhead and stretching into their lower back and stretching, and rounding their spine. If the work that you're wanting to get done is on the hamstring, think, all right, what are the joints that are at the attachment points of the hamstring? So back of the knee, bottom of the pelvis. And I want to be focusing on those joints. I don't want to be going and moving these joints. Can't tell you the amount of people who just stretch like this. They end up just rounding their back, don't ever touch their hamstrings. And so big thing is just make sure that you are addressing the joint that you want to address and not sacrificing other joints, other muscles in order to get there. Can't stand it when I see people in like a yoga class and they're trying to get into a deeper position because the instructor wants them to, and they don't have the mobility for it. They don't have the flexibility for it. I've had a number of clients come back to me, hey, I used to do Bikram yoga, I tore my glute, and it's just because they're getting into positions that their body can't handle yet. So make sure you're just focusing on one joint. Number 2, breathe. And specifically really focus and emphasize the exhale. The exhale is the part of your breath that is going to stimulate the parasympathetic nervous system, and you need to be in a relaxed state for your body to loosen up. And so again, that's where you're going to see a lot of people post-workout in a yoga class or even just in the comfort of their own home do a lot of stretching, because if you're all wound up and tight and stressed out, it's going to be really hard to get your nervous system, to get your central nervous system, your brain and body to relax. And so if I'm going into a stretch for my hamstring, I want to just nice, slow and easy breaths in through the nose, out the mouth. And then that exhale is going to be where I try and find a little bit more depth. So I might go here and then exhale, deep, 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 deep. And now I've got a little bit of a stretch. Your brain is what is governing your flexibility. If it says, hey, we're not safe at this end range, it's not going to give you that. But if you can work on it, one, through consistent stretching and working on these different principles and working on the different stretches, then you get yourself into a relaxed state. That's where the body's going to give it to you. Next, the difference between flexibility and mobility. So flexibility is assisted, and it is kind of your potential. So let's say I get my arms up overhead in that position, or let's say I have a wall and I'm stretching with the assist of a wall. Flexibility is what you have the potential for, but I can't control back here like I could with the wall. I can't go overhead as much as I was here. So mobility is going to be what you can control at end ranges. Flexibility is going to be some other item, person, or just object is helping you get there. So mobility, I control end range here. If I had something to leverage my leg up here, I might be able to get a little bit deeper. But flexibility and mobility get thrown around interchangeably a lot. It's important to know flexibility is your potential. Mobility is what you own. That's what you can control. Next, you've got tight muscles. And tight muscles, what does that mean from a principle standpoint? Just because something's tight doesn't mean that that's where you should look. And this is where you would want to maybe work with a physical therapist or with a coach, or really just do some digging yourself to figure out, all right, why are my hamstrings tight? Is it the positioning of my pelvis? Is it because my hamstrings are weak and those weak muscles are being pulled upon by tighter muscles that are winning the battle in the agonist or antagonist relationship? So let's say I got really tight quads, really weak hamstrings, my quads attach here. I might notice that my hamstrings are really tight. And until I strengthen these, I'm going to have a imbalance between these two, and that's going to affect where this sits. If my pelvis is constantly tilted like this in an anterior pelvic tilt, aka what I call the Kim Kardashian, well, the hamstrings attach here, they're always being pulled. You can stretch on them as much as you want, but until they either get stronger or other muscles up and down the chain, glutes, quads, potentially your hips, you want to make sure that you're looking up chain, cross chain, and addressing maybe that muscle is just weak and it needs to be strengthened. So just because something's tight, again, you could just be here all day, 6 months, a year, stretching my hamstrings, I'm stretching my hamstrings. But if you don't address the root of the inflexibility or the tightness, you're ultimately just going to be spinning your wheels. And finally, how deep should you stretch, or how painful should it be? And I would say probably not painful ideally, but studies have shown that you're going to want to be in that 30 to 40% range. So I could go all the way here and really crank and get really deep and have it be 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10 from pain, but I don't want that. I want 30 to 40%. So as you're getting deeper, okay, cool, 30 to 40%, that's going to be where you want to stay. And now in the next section of this video, we'll break down a bunch of different static stretch types as well as dynamic stretching types, and that's where you'll be able to use different techniques to maybe get a little bit deeper in an individual session and then build up so that 3 months down the road, you've got a lot more flexibility, you got a lot more mobility, and you're just moving better. All right, so let's dive into static stretching. The first one we're gonna look at is traditional static stretching. This is probably what you've seen a million times at a gym. Someone's got their leg in here and they are stretching. So you're gonna wanna hold these from 30 to 60 seconds, and then just remember to apply the principles. I don't wanna be rounding in through here. Let's just focus on where we're at. So then just hinge at the hips, and you're working on your stretch here from a static standpoint. Next version of stretching is going to be assisted or passive. And now, because I don't have a force ghost with me to stretch me, I'll show you what I mean using a band for an assist standpoint. So I might be here and I can get, let's say, this deep on my own, but with the band, I can get even more. So I'm getting some assist here in this stretch, and you're gonna apply the same principle of 30 to 60 seconds. Make sure you're exhaling into some more depth, you're breathing, and you're just holding here, right? So a static stretch in that standpoint. Next, you've got what is going to be called a reciprocal inhibition. So reciprocal inhibition just means that one muscle on the opposite side is going to be contracted while this one's relaxed. And you can actually feel this a lot in a bicep. Let's say you go and do a bunch of curls, get all jacked, and then the next day, flex your tricep. You're gonna wanna do this 3 to 5 times for 10 seconds each. Just flex your tricep as hard as you can, and you're actually gonna feel a stretch on this muscle group. Let's say I'm doing it on the opposite side. I wanna maybe stretch, get a little bit more in through the hip flexors. I'll actually squeeze my glutes, which are on the opposing side, and I'll just squeeze my glutes and go in through there. If I squeeze my quads here, I might get a little bit of a stretch here. And so reciprocal inhibition is just basically contracting the opposite side muscle group to allow the other side to essentially find a more natural length tension. So if let's say I was just here all the time with my neck. This is constantly at a lengthened position. This is constantly at a shortened position. Now I can't contract reciprocal inhibition there, but that same principle can happen here, where maybe you're just always tight in here, or in your hip flexion, you're always tight in here, you're always in hip flexion. Getting some contraction in through here, this is where strength training is super helpful. Contraction in through here allows this to be a much more natural length tension of the muscle group. Next, you've got PNF, proprioceptive neuromuscular facilitation. Say that 10 times fast. So essentially what we're gonna be doing here is contracting the muscle and then relaxing and going deeper into the stretch. So let's say we're doing the quad. So I'm holding here and we're gonna do 3 to 5 rounds of 10 seconds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna kick into my hand. I'm not getting anywhere with my foot because my hand's in the way, but I'm kicking, kick, 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 kick. We're at 5, 6, 7, I can feel the stretch, 8, 9, 10, I relax, stop kicking, and then I pull a little bit deeper, heel to butt. If I was working with someone who is a physical therapist, they might push into my hamstring, and then I drive into them. And I've got this bench here because you can do some PNF stretching with other objects. So essentially what I would do here is I would drive my heel in. I can't move this bench, it's not going anywhere, but I'm driving 3, 4, ton of tension. I'm feeling it here. 7, 8, 9, 10. And then I hinge at the waist and get a little bit deeper. So PNF stretching is one of my favorite ways. I'll get into how I would apply static, different types of static within and maybe an active recovery day or post-workout as just a recovery stretching. But PNF, reciprocal inhibition, these are all principles that you kind of can apply together to get a lot more controlled flexibility, which eventually turns into mobility. And I think kind of one quick little side note tangent here. Let's say you get like a hamstring cramp, right? Sometimes I'll work out and I didn't drink enough water, I start to cramp a little bit. What I'll do is I'll go in here with a little bit of PNF stretching and I've got my hamstring at its end range and I'll just go 10%, 20%, 30%. And really what I'm trying to do here is just tell my brain like, hey, I know we cramped up, I know we got a little bit tight, but let's just remind ourselves we're cool here, we're safe here, and different exercises can actually help you get back into feeling a lot more, I don't want to say more relaxed, but you can get back to being able to perform and exercise a little bit quicker by going through some of these more active static stretching techniques like PNF. Next, let's break down dynamic stretching. So we got 3 that we're gonna look at right here. First one is just your traditional dynamic stretching. So let's say you got 10 meters of turf that you're gonna go down, you'll be going knee to chest, knee to chest. And so these are just short little bursts of stretching. I'm really quickly pulling on my hamstring, pulling my glute up, but I'm not holding these for any period of time. And as I go through and move, I'm getting my heart rate elevated a little bit, getting a little bit of extra blood flow, and I'm getting myself and my body ready for activity. A couple other ones that you could be doing from a dynamic stretch standpoint would be quad pull, reach down, touch. Quad pull, reach down, touch. So I'm going a little quick hamstring stretch, a little quick quad stretch, nothing crazy right there. Then from there you have ballistic stretching. And this is what you might see a pitcher doing or someone who's getting ready for a run doing. And so this is gonna be where you're here and you're just swinging your leg back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. From a pitcher standpoint, they might be going, around. And really what you're just doing here is you're just pushing the envelope on those dynamic stretches. So this is almost in a way you can think of this as like, this is by no means something that you would have control of, but you're just pushing the envelope and saying, hey, give me whatever range that we have access to. I would say be a little bit careful doing this just so that you don't go beyond the stretch reflex of that muscle and end up pulling something and have the brain go and lock everything down. But those are gonna be things that I would go maybe from let's say you're warming up, you've done your dynamic effort, you've done your mobility exercises, and then you go in for just a little bit of high intensity stretching there with ballistic stretching. That's where that would make sense. And then finally, loaded stretching. And a lot of people don't think about this, but I would look at hypertrophy training as flexibility training in a way. And what I mean by this is loaded stretching is if I go and touch my toes, or if I go and just practice hinging and working on my hamstring flexibility, I'm doing this body weight. So body weight stretching, I can feel my hamstring stretch right here. Well, if I'm trying to train my brain and my muscles to say, hey, be strong at end ranges, well, adding weight and saying, okay, are we strong at end range here? Yep, we sure are. We can come back up. So this is just 25 pounds in each hand, 50 pounds. But if I'm doing squats, for example, one day, I might go here with the bar on my back and just sit here and hold. Sit here and hold. With RDLs, I might, grab the barbell and just go up and down a little bit, up and down a little bit. Adding a little bit of load to the end range of your stretching is going to be a more exercise or sport specific way to get a little bit deeper into that stretch, maybe more of a compound movement type of way as well. Because if I'm stretching just here, sure, I'm stretching here, but in a squat, there's a number of different joints and muscles that are involved. So being able to go to the end range necessary for that movement is something that you could do in your warm-up sets, or obviously in your dynamic warm-up as part of a good warm-up routine. So just to recap, we've got static stretching, we've got dynamic stretching. If you are post-workout or in a recovery type mode, or maybe you're waking up from a good night's sleep or getting ready for bed, where again, you're in kind of that recovery mode mindset, trying to down-regulate the nervous system, I would go with static stretching. You can go assisted, maybe your spouse or someone else is able to get you a little bit deeper into a stretch after a workout, or you just do it obviously static by yourself. Now, if you're doing an active recovery type day, or maybe you're going to the gym doing a 20, 30 minute, more mobility focused routine and just trying to get some blood flow, then I like incorporating things like PNF or reciprocal inhibition approaches to be able to still get a little bit more active movement or active stretching in that static frame, but still applying that to an active recovery day. And then for a dynamic stretching standpoint, I would go and move that before your workout. So if you're going and getting ready to lift, you're getting ready to run, I'm gonna be applying some dynamic stretching to get my body ready to go. I want to wake the central nervous system up. I want to activate the muscle groups that I'm gonna be using a little bit of mobility to make sure that my body's ready to move in a lower half or upper half or total body capacity. And at that point, you're ready and good to go. Couple last thoughts or principles for how you would apply this throughout the week. Try and aim to hit each muscle group for 5 minutes per week. So if you're stretching your pec, that's 5 minutes. So you could break that up into multiple 30-second stretches multiple times in the week, or you could look at minute-long stretches and you do that maybe on a Wednesday for 2 minutes, and then you do it on a Saturday for 3 minutes, and there you go. Or you could stretch it out obviously throughout the week, 5 days a week, 6 days a week, 7 days a week. You'll find what works best for you as you get ready to go. And if you want this kind of done for you, you can check out these 2 videos here where I do an upper body version of a stretch and recovery session, or I'll do a lower body version of a stretch and recovery session. Thanks for watching, troopers. I'll catch you guys on the next Trooper Transmission.